Good evening, everybody, fellow members and folks out there in the virtual world. Welcome, and I'm calling this meeting to order. A quorum is present. This is the scheduled meeting of our Independent Citizen Police Review Board for Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. The chair recognizes that Ms. McClellan is excused and is absent this evening. Fellow members, the draft minutes of the December 6th meeting were distributed to all on, I think it was January 15th. Are there any corrections to the minutes as distributed? I do have one. You'll see in the unfinished business that we have the 2023 calendar meeting, and that was already decided back in October, I believe. So that is the only change to that. So if there's no other further corrections, the minutes stand approved and distributed. I want to recognize and congratulate my colleague, Mr. Robinson, as vice chair of this board. Mr. Robinson, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you. And obviously, thank you for the nomination that I received last month. And for those of you that voted for me, I appreciate it. And look forward to supporting Dr. Gershio in any way I need to and any way I can.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mr. Green, thank you so much for your continued participation and dedication to the board. I truly appreciate it, and our fellow members appreciate that also. Okay, the board will conduct its business agenda followed by its case review. At the conclusion of the case review, public comment will be received and limited to 3 minutes. So if anybody would like to speak as we go out through the night, we'll watch the chat and we'll look for your name at the end of the meeting. All right, we're ready for the executive report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And on behalf of the staff, we congratulate both you as newly appointed chair and Mr. Robinson as our new vice chair. Your staff stand ready to do whatever it is you need us to do to further the mission of the CPRB. It might be a good opportunity to just remind members that sometimes when you are out and about in public, people recognize you as being a part of this board, and they may have business in front of the board. If they should approach you or they seek to discuss some matter before you, I would encourage you to just redirect them to your staff, our numbers, email, whatever it may be. You are objective, impartial fact finders, and for someone to approach you and try to talk about a case or a matter before the board, it could cause a bit of a bias. And we really don't want you to be in a position where you have to recuse yourselves because someone has approached. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it does. And I recall one time where we actually had someone almost stalking a board member because she was friendly and acknowledged that she was on the board and was listening intently to what the individual was telling her. And that ended up turning into a very uncomfortable situation. So again, it doesn't happen often, but if it does, probably the safest and best thing for you to do is just refer them back to us, and we will take care of the matter. We just want to protect you and your impartiality. The county board did reach out. A member of the county board reached out a couple of weeks ago, and we had a good discussion about practices for oversight. They're trying to put together their bylaws, their rules, their operating procedures. So I did certainly assure them that we are stand ready to help in any way we can, to give advice, to assist them And I was delighted to be able to have that conversation, because as you know, we were not, at least I was not publicly on board with the whole idea, given the context, the circumstances, and there's a whole lot more to it, related to the number of police departments and all of that. The rigor with which they're going to be able to conduct their work was really the significant part of our conversation, because they don't have any staff. So we'll continue that conversation and I'll report back as appropriate. University of Chicago is conducting a research on how local oversight entities are managing their cases. I think their goal is to establish a benchmark for our oversight boards funded adequately. There's a range of different ways that boards are funded, or oversight entities, whatever model they use. Some places use a percentage of the police budget. Some are arbitrary. Some have no funding. So the University of Chicago research is trying to establish what is an appropriate level of funding for agencies or boards or whatever the oversight entities may be. We participated in conversation with them. We'll share information with them. And it's not terribly unlike what they're looking for, is not terribly unlike what we did for the Department of Justice study that we seem to be caught into for ever and ever and ever. But they go right down to the allegations that have been filed, the disposition of those allegations. It's very intricate. Because we've done it with the Department of Justice, it's easy for us to assist the University of Chicago in research. So I'll report back on that as well as appropriate. The transcript from the rude and discourteous hearing that you conducted in December, on December 6th, has not yet been received. I believe Ms. Hampton has been in touch with the court reporter so that we can get that transcript and finish our work on that.
I did email them and I'm waiting on a response.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. The couple of those individuals, the people who spoke to you that night, they have converted their concern into complaints so that they are under investigation. You'll recall that we opened an inquiry into supervisory preparation for the Bureau of Police as part of our look at 3 significant incidents that happened in relatively short time to each other. Last month, I believe I indicated to you we had requested information and it was not forthcoming. Our request was sent to the law department for review to determine whether we were entitled to see their material. We still have not received any of that requested material. Solicitor Ward and I are going to follow up with that. We have a meeting coming up, and hopefully we'll be able to smooth out some of the rough edges that we've been running into for over the last year. We'll report back on that in February because it's at a standstill. We haven't received anything yet. There seems to be a resurgence in questionable vehicle searches. You'll recall that since I think it was December of 2020, the courts ruled that in Pennsylvania, to conduct a vehicle search, there has to be cause and exigent circumstances. They can't just stop a vehicle and search it anymore. So we've heard of a couple. One was very highly publicized in the last week or so that happened out in Homewood, where officers surrounded a vehicle. They had a traffic stop. They surrounded the vehicle. They went through the vehicle. We are looking into that. So I can't speak to any facts related to whether or not it was a consensual search, whether it was what the status of the driver was. We don't know that yet, but we are looking at it. And we're a little bit concerned because the vehicle search issue had gone away for a little while. And now it just seems like it's coming back. So I don't have anything else to say about that other than we're aware that it's reemerging and we're looking at it. There is a program, I think I mentioned it to you all sometime in the last year. It's called Trulio. It is a body-worn camera audio analytic program. It's an app that runs body-worn camera video through a system that analyzes the nature of the communication between an officer and the civilian and the other person, whoever it may be. And it determines if the officer's language is professional, if it's contributing to an escalated situation, if it has in any way contributed to the need for use of force. I believe all of our board members did receive a packet from the company, Trulio. We heard about it and it sounded like a great idea. I understand that there are some members of the Bureau of Police that are also fans of the program. The most, maybe not the most, but one of the attractive aspects of it is that it gives feedback to the individual. They can hear themselves, how they speak to someone, and how that demeanor has translated into an elevated risk for the officer and for the subject or others around. The professionalism, its influence on the outcome of the encounter. It's pretty straightforward. It's a remarkable program. If you would like to know more about it, I believe we could ask them to give an online presentation next month at your meeting, so you can have an idea of what it is that they're presenting, what they're offering, and whether you would think it would be a good or a bad thing in light of the rude and discourteous conduct hearing that we had last month and the annual repetition of conduct unbecoming and conduct toward the public being the highest number of complaints that people bring to us. Demeanor, how they conduct themselves, the use of profanity, the use of coarse language, the general discourteous way they communicate with individuals. This program will analyze it and determine whether it's contributing to risk, if it's contributing, as I said, to a need for force, if that could have been reduced, and the professionalism with which the officer is conducting him or herself. And that feedback is made available to the officer. So the officer hears him or herself and how he or she is talking to the people they're there to assist with whatever the call may be. So it's a really exciting kind of use of technology that I understand, as I mentioned, that some officers are enamored of it here in Pittsburgh, and but I don't know that it's being considered. My understanding of a recent program that the Bureau was embarking on with Axon, which is the provider of Taser, is something called My90, and it's some hybrid of My90. This program with Axon does follow-up surveys with people who have summoned the police through a 911 call. So it's intended to get a survey from those parties who have used police services and give that feedback to administration as to how the officers are conducting themselves. That's a nice thing. It's a good idea. There's probably a lot of value to it. We have not looked at it to the degree that we could come back and say, yay or nay, but on its face, our concern was that some people don't want to be bothered with a follow-up call. Some people don't want somebody to know who they are and why that they had the police. I mean, there are a lot of other things there that could contribute to threatening the community in a very indirect way, but nonetheless, the privacy issue is there. But it doesn't come back the way this other program, Trulio, does in the manner in which it provides a feedback loop to the individual officer. And then, of course, there's follow-up and a record made so that they can see longitudinally how conduct of the officer has stayed the same or changed, whatever it may be. So I don't know. If you are interested in that, I think we could probably have a presentation. Is that something you would like me to look into?
Colleagues?
I say yes. It would be good to have more information about how it works.
Yeah, and if, once we got the price from this, right, this would be just a recommendation we would make to the Bureau? Is that how that would go down?
I think what it would be, I mean, you can't get into endorsing anything, I'm not looking
Right.
for that. But in terms of exposing you to what contemporary technology opportunities are and options are available for modern policing, where it's been implemented, how it has improved or contributed to the overall department agency, the law enforcement agencies, training, identifying training needs, and how it affects the quality of their service. It's probably, Dr. Gershio, I'm suggesting it more for that reason than anything. And if you felt so inclined, you could certainly make a suggestion. I would also, in the interest of fairness, though, have somebody see if we could have a presentation from the Axon people.
That's what I was gonna say, yeah,
Yeah, not on the same night.
right.
But I'll reach out to these folks and see what we can possibly arrange. Short presentations. We're not talking about an hour's worth of
Yeah, just what it, what it can do, what its potential is, cost. I guess we would have to know the cost, because if it was something outrageous, we know that the city, and doesn't the city still have to go out for 3 bids to any?
City has to bid, but sometimes there isn't anybody else that does it.
Mhm.
It's a unique thing. And frankly, I would say to you that you need to worry about cost. You need to be sure that your city police have or are striving toward the best that's available to them for the sake of officer safety, communication skills, blah, 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 the professionalism of the officers and all of that. And this is one use of technology that can contribute significantly to that. And so I think you would enjoy knowing what is available. And you can have a comment about it. I'm not asking you to, do it for the purposes of assessing it for your endorsement, not that at all, but more that this is an exciting kind of technology that really takes a lot out of. I mean, it indicates too, the use of profanity is so common. And what their data has shown is that actually the use of profanity escalates rather than de-escalates, alienates rather than gains cooperation. What they did see is that civilian resistance and, for lack of a better word, their resistance and belligerence increased as the officers' conduct and communication skills grew in professionalism and eliminated profanity, eliminated harsh interactions, or actually started to use some, courtesy. Please, thank you. Address people by Mr. or Miss. Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, I guess my immediate question is, one, I was surprised to hear that some officers were, and I don't know if you said administrators were interested as well, but do you know of any other jurisdictions that use this? Has this come up as something that's used against officers for discipline? Obviously, they have access to the cameras themselves and the footage, but that would obviously be up to some level of discretion. But if you have a system saying that this language or this how this person did this was contrary, could that be something that could be used? Would that be something that we would have access to? Yeah, I guess I don't know if you've had any thought. Maybe we could ask them that if they come in front of us.
Yeah, there are a couple departments that are using it. And my initial reaction to that is it's a professional development tool, and it gives a profile of the officer's conduct in terms of how it influences the police and subject police-civilian interaction. It doesn't say they used bad language 10 times and you violated your unbecoming conduct standard. It doesn't, it's not for that. I just think the most profound value to it is the personal feedback that the officer gets, that they can see how they are influencing the engagements. And then they can see how those engagements have improved over time when they've changed their way. Now, in terms of it being used as an assessment, or a disciplinary tool, we can ask that question. But it certainly, that was not the intent of the development of the technology. Any other questions about that?
I mean, the email was very intriguing to see, what would the next steps be. And I think that would be just to hear a presentation about it.
We'll look into that. We have, I think I can go, I don't want to take up a lot of your time because I realize that some of you have other engagements. So, intake, the final numbers for 2022 in City of Pittsburgh complaints, we had 217, which has maintained the lowest level that we projected early in December. We did have 15 out of jurisdiction complaints, which brings the actual total up, but they were not related to police conduct. I mean, City of Pittsburgh police. So that's a very positive thing. And in January thus far, we have received 17 complaints. Now, we've had a couple of very controversial incidents and public discussions of late. One involving the implementation of the equitable enforcement of the vehicle code in the City of Pittsburgh. You'll recall that in 2021, an ordinance was adopted that prohibited stops for secondary violations only. And the effective date of that was delayed 120 days for the purpose of providing officer training as to how were they going to implement this ordinance. A lot of controversy around that, but council did adopt it. And it was being adhered to until recently. You may be aware that there was a memo issued by, well, let's back up. There was that incident in Brackenridge where the chief of police was killed. And pursuant to that, the individual fled and there was a pursuit. There was an effort to apprehend the guy who shot the chief of Brackenridge and another officer. That pursuit stopped in Homewood, the eastern part of the city, and the actor was shot after he had discharged a few rounds at Pittsburgh police officers. Pittsburgh police returned fire and the man was fatally injured. That was on January 2nd, I believe. The next day, or thereabouts, Acting Chief Stan Grecki issued a memo directing police officers to return to adherence to the traffic enforcement policies of the Bureau without regard for the ordinance. So that became a big issue. And now we're seeing that some interest and some concerns related to, well, what's going to happen now? So with that, and with another controversial issue, the use of the implementation that council's considering, or at least they are not considering a proposal, but they're talking about it as a potential policy of reinstating a juvenile curfew. And that too has raised some controversy in the community. So we had the good luck that The president of the Pittsburgh unit of the NAACP was able to join us tonight, Mr. Dalen Davis. And he particularly wanted to speak to you as about those two issues, the traffic stops and the curfew. So I asked Mr. Davis to come as part of my report so that he could share his thoughts and concerns to you all, and you could ask questions, you could have a discussion, and maybe we could, get an idea of what direction you wish to go on those two issues. Mr. Davis?
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for, allowing me to come speak to you guys this evening. As Pitcher said, I have some concerns. We have a police department that is clearly ignoring the wishes of the community stakeholders that worked with council to pass this ordinance for these minor traffic stops and not adhering to it, while at the same time council is asking the same police department to now enforce a curfew for minors. And we're not even talking about adults, we're talking about your kids that are downtown. I just think that as far as I'm concerned, I want to work with this board, to come up with equitable solutions. What are your thoughts? Mr. Robinson?
I guess my first thought regarding the stops, traffic stops, was I know we discussed earlier this year some concerns about that ordinance affecting their accreditation. And I thought we had gotten some confirmation that had been rectified. I know that did not seem to come up in public reports about the change from acting chief. I think he referenced, or I might have seen reported, a new state law. I don't know, does Mr. Davis or Ms. Pittenger, do any of you have any clear understanding of why they changed their stance on that ordinance?
Before you respond, I do just want to say a point of contention. Regardless if it's a state law that has been adversely affected their ability to make these secondary traffic stops, the acting chief went on the radio and stated that he did so because of morale in the department. Now, I'm a poor man, doesn't mean someone gonna give me $1 million because I'm sad about it, and we should not be enforcing laws based off people's, moral points on an issue. It should be based off of facts. It should be based in law, because nobody's above the law.
Thank you. And I've talked to a few officers myself who have expressed that same thing, that they're not able to do their job when they were following that, which again, I think that's somewhat anecdotal from officers, but okay, I didn't know if that was what was the official, because I heard that too, like on a report, but I heard news articles or news reports say something else.
Mr. Robinson, the issue of the accreditation, there was an extension given so that related litigation, because recall that Philadelphia also has an ordinance that prohibits certain traffic stops. So in Philadelphia, they took that to court, and pending the outcome of litigation related to it, they're projecting maybe 2 years where our accreditation will remain pending the outcome in spite of the ordinance. This is where this gets real tricky. Yes, Acting Chief Stan Grecki did indicate in a public statement that he was trying to boost the morale of his officers. That's stemming from them feeling that they're being restrained in fulfilling their duty as they're sworn to uphold the Commonwealth statutes and the Motor Vehicle Code of the Pennsylvania. I don't know why he said that. I don't, that's just, I can't answer for him. But then what we had was a statement from the mayor's office saying that he meant this because of training, that this was to allow training on this new state law. That is not what Stan Grecki said. The new state law is related to the obscuring of the license plate. You recall there was a big brouhaha because people were getting ticketed by officers for having visitpa.com being covered up, or ridiculous things that really didn't avoid or elude detection as a Pennsylvania plate. But because the law was on the books and it says it can't be at all obstructed, then this stuff happened. And, you know, that's happened in the past. I mean, about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that was a big thing too. People were getting stopped because they had their license plate was covered up. That was the change in the state law. The legislature changed it. I think it went, an individual took it to court and the court said, this is ridiculous, but it is the law. And then subsequently the legislature changed the law so that as long as it's identifiable as a Pennsylvania plate, it's not an issue. That's the change in state law. That's it. So I remind us that the equitable enforcement signed in December of 21 with an effective date 120 days later was to allow for training on equitable enforcement ordinance. Apparently that wasn't done, or they have to do something else. But honestly, to hold up something for that state law change that I described, which shouldn't take more than a roll call memo that, oh, by the way, obstructed license plates are no longer justification for, or this is not an obstructed license plate, whereas this is, show an example, and they're out there. They're not stupid people. So the training aspect of that to comply with the new law, I'm not sure where that's coming from either. And there was another aspect of that that was, it'll come to me. I guess it wasn't that important. But that's what those two issues were, Mr. Robinson.
I thought that might have been the law they were referencing, but I never heard them explain it. So thanks for the clarification.
There was also a statement that was publicized that police, that city policy is not police policy, and there cannot be anything that is further from accurate. The Pittsburgh City Code is the law of the city of Pittsburgh. All operations must conform to that law. The police can't make up their own set of codes or policies and say, oh, well, that's just, we don't have to pay attention to the city code. Yes, they do. And so as long as that equitable enforcement is on the books in the city of Pittsburgh, and my understanding is city council will not withdraw it, they're not going to repeal it, then the police have to conform to that. Where there is the conflict between the local and the state law, that needs to be figured out. I mean, that needs to be people sitting down and sorting it out and figuring out, how do we deal with this? For you, members, you now have a dilemma in that the police bureau is not abiding the city law. So that's a big act of misconduct right there. The whole bureau is blown off a city law. And you have the right to find that it's misconduct, because under misconduct definition in your ordinance, any violation of law is misconduct. Mr. Green.
Ms. Pittenger, who made that statement about city policy is not public policy? I mean, police policy. Was that Mr.
I'm not sure. I don't want to, I'm not prepared to attribute that to any one party.
Okay.
It was in the news report. It was a quote that appeared on screen, and
Okay.
I do not recall who it was attributed to.
Okay.
But that's part of, that's, you can't run a railroad like this. We have to know that if these are the rules, then okay, we live with the rules until we can change them. And that change often involves a lot of different interests and so on, things that Mr. Davis does on a regular basis.
And I would also say that to the public, it looks like The left hand is not telling you what the right hand is doing. And especially with a lot of community stakeholders that advocated to council for these changes to just simply be ignored and then not tell the new mayor, well, we're just not going to follow this, so you're going to have to just deal with it. It just shows not only a lack of respect for his office, but for a lack of respect of the people that worked hard to get this ordinance passed. And I would agree with Ms. Pitchinger said. Now, where the state law conflicts with the city ordinance, they got to iron that out.
Just to follow up, and I do apologize, I have to leave shortly, but I guess first, have we heard any indication from the mayor's office or city council about what steps they plan to take towards the chief who's actively not in compliance with the city ordinance that was passed and that the administration supports? And I guess secondarily to the other part of this regarding the curfew issue, obviously, I'm assuming this is in response to just some of the violent acts that have been occurring. I'm curious, again, having researched a lot of this stuff historically in the past, I'm curious, were the same advocate groups that came out in favor of the ordinance on the traffic stops, do we know where they at? Have they expressed an opinion on the curfews? Because a lot of times if you have a curfew, you're going to see some of those same disparities with who's being stopped for alleged curfew. Well, I don't even know how to begin to think they'll do that when they're short manpower and all this stuff. But yeah, so two questions there. One, what's the city doing regarding the chief? And do we know what our local advocate groups are doing regarding where they fall on the curfew issue?
Mr. Robinson, I don't know what the community at large is doing. Mr. Davis is probably in a better position.
I do know, I heard that the mayor stated that he was against, at least now, enforcing the curfew because of the identification issue. A lot of young people don't carry ID. So then now we're getting into the situation, well, are we stopping and frisking folks to identify if they're youth or if they're an adult? And then are we going searching them, you know, to lead to other charges potentially? And he wants a more ironed out plan from City Council President Teresa Cal Smith before council considers it.
There was also a suggestion that the community rec centers hours be extended so that there would be a place for youth to go. Again, it is in the discussion stage. Council President Cal Smith has indicated that she's trying to come up with something that gives opportunity and that would be developmental in practice. But we've been there before, right? We've done this in the city before and it didn't work. No reason to think it's going to work now. But we have to do something, and that is going to have to require some, again, our community groups and our schools. I mean, our schools are incredibly important, and the teachers, our educators in this city are very well versed in what the needs and the troubles are for our youth. And I don't hear them being engaged as often or to the degree to which they could really, really contribute valuable insight to the state of our kids. Again, it's in the discussion phase, so we'll see where it ends up going. At this point, though, I am not aware, and maybe Mr. Davis is more aware of it than I, that there's any proposal actually on the table.
Last information that I received is that, as you stated, Ms. Cal Smith, Councilwoman, is considering her options as far as the drafting of the curfew. But currently, as I said before, I'm against anything that will increase any interactions with our police department until we iron out some of these things that are currently happening.
Well, Mr. Davis, I appreciate you coming tonight and contributing. You know, there's another dynamic at play here that we haven't mentioned, and that is that the contract, the working agreement between the FOP and the city of Pittsburgh is at an impasse. They were supposed to have met Thursday, like a couple of weeks ago. There had been a meeting scheduled so that they could try to hammer it out before it goes to binding arbitration. And apparently at the last minute, the mayor's office called that meeting off. So that dynamic, for whatever reason, and we have no reason to know. I mean, there was a report publicly that there was concern about the money available to use in bargaining with the Bureau, with the FOP rather. I don't know if we don't know. We have no idea. But it seemed unusual that such would have been mentioned in public since that's a bargaining issue. So we don't know where they stand. And that only is important because it contributes to the mood of the police. I guess I could characterize it that way. So we have a lot of unhappy groups of people in the city right now, and I don't know how we get back to some harmony. But if there's anything that the board would want staff to do to pursue that, anything at all, you just let us know. And Mr. Davis, if there's anything we can do to support or contribute to the efforts of the NAACP, please let us know.
I guess I do have a question. Is anybody engaging the schools, the Pittsburgh Public Schools? Do they have them at the table to discuss this curfew stuff? And does anybody know?
I work with Westinghouse and a couple other the elementary schools in Homewood, Zone 5. I work with the Zone 5 Commander Public Safety Council. Also work with our Zone 1 Public Safety Council over here on the north side. And I haven't heard anything about that come up. I do know some of their community engagement officers do work in some of the schools, specifically Westinghouse, but that's something they've been doing for a while, independent of any new discussions. I'm actually exploring some of this for my work with regards to Westinghouse, but nothing related to a curfew or anything like that. Just more towards of improving relationships between the community and students and police.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, from the teachers that I deal with through my job, engaging with the teachers to find out what is realistic, what can be done from their perspective to help the behaviors. So
I think that the tremendous resource there would be the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers, the PFT.
Yeah.
They're the heart and soul of all education in the city of Pittsburgh. And they know. They've also been tremendous partners and supporters of this board. And we've been into schools with them, with their members. But I think that's a resource, and they're just not being used and included as they could be. Council President Cale Smith, she tends to gather people together to have discussions. And she tends to be creative in who she includes in those things. So if she moves down that road, I would expect to see at least an invitation to the PFT to participate in those discussions. I'll certainly suggest it to her if she goes in the direction of creating a working group, that they be included.
I mean, I can't imagine that Nina would not engage in a conversation with whether it's councilwoman or chief or whoever they're going to pull together here. But I think you're right. Starting at the, K through 8 system. And then I don't know, what were they talking about? Was it 18 was the curfew? But did they put an age on that? I did not see.
17 under.
17.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think that's reasonable to conclude my report to you. I do have data on the 2021 traffic stops and representation of ethnic groups. If you're interested in that, we can send it out to you all. If you want to see it now, I can show it to you, but I think we've used up a lot of your meeting time, and I don't want Mr. Robinson to have to miss any of your deliberations.
If you could send
That
that out.
concludes it unless members have questions for me, Dr. Gershio. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Is Mr. Davis still on or is he gone?
He's
I'm
here.
still here.
Oh, okay. Any questions of us or?
Nope, as I said, I'm new to this role. I'm newly installed president for the 2023-2024 year. These are just immediate concerns that I'm seeing that should be addressed. And I just said, again, I want our unit to be able to work with this body and be able to facilitate, conversations around addressing the concerns that are happening in the community.
We thank you because we value the partnership too. And, feel free to, reach out to us if you need to come back or you need something from us, please feel free to do so.
Will do. And I thank you guys for allowing me to come here tonight, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Ready. So Beth, anything else for your report? Did anybody want to hear these numbers or are we just going to send the data out to members? What's your pleasure? I think I saw a couple please sends.
Yes, there is.
Please send.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right, Beth, if you could just send that out and then we'll start with any new, well, we have to do the cases. So
Yeah.
if you would, Ms. Hamilton, pull up the agenda. Do the case reviews. Already. So everybody had an opportunity to see the cases. We have 6 for, is there anything about, 6 for full investigation. And that's case 20622, 18722, 18622, 10222, and I think there's another one under that, a couple others. 09922 and 085-22. And these again are for full investigation. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank
I
you.
second.
Second. It's been approved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So we have, I think there are 2 cases for needing additional for 30-day extension, I'm sorry. That's 200-22ED and 187-22. Do I have a motion?
It's 197.
Oh, I don't even know what I said. 197-22. Motion?
I move that we accept the 2 for 30-day extensions.
Thank you, Dr. Darby. Second?
A second.
It's been first and second and discussion.
Yes, I had a question about that. Ms. Bridget, what exactly are you exploring in that case? We know what the news report said. Are you looking at police records or exactly how is that being investigated?
I think there's 2 things we're looking at. The officers not showing up at the detail for the details. And then I believe Beth had requested the training records at the academy, but we never got anything.
Okay.
We wanted to see how the supervisors were being trained.
Okay. So I know the news reports indicated that they had been asked to attend and did not, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So if we get the records, we'll be able to see exactly what the order was.
I believe there were email exchanges for the Zone 5 and for the Zone 5 incident. The commander at Zone 1 didn't want to go into too much detail because he had a meeting with the public safety director about discipline. So I have to get back. I have to talk to him again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So are we talking about 200-22?
Yes.
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 I also had a question about that. Simply in terms of the allegation, might it be more appropriate to have neglect of duty since they were supposed to be at these functions and did not appear? I mean, would that
Yes,
be?
yes, I can add that charge.
Okay.
And we're attempting to determine if there was insubordination as well. But this is the case that expanded to looking at how are the supervisors trained in their leadership training, their ethical training, pre and post promotion. Because recall there was also a third incident with the same theme, and that resulted in termination of 3 bicycle officers because 2 of them were patrol and they were reporting that they were somewhere where they weren't, but they were supposed to be. And their supervisor, the sergeant, was also terminated in that incident. So we had these 3 incidents that involved questionable supervision because none of these things would have happened had the supervisors properly communicated and assured that what they directed their subordinates to do was completed. So that's what took us to looking at this issue as a, what's the capacity of our supervisory staff, and are they being given the opportunity to develop professionally so that they're confident and competent in their acquired supervisory positions. So there's a lot to be learned there, and that's the case where I indicated they couldn't decide whether or not we were entitled to see their training material. So,
And that's
we're
the
waiting on that.
meeting, yeah, that's the meeting you're having, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, so it's been moved, seconded, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. There are no unsustainable cases, and we have 1 case that is unfounded, case number 157-22.
I
Go
move
ahead.
that we dismiss that as unfounded.
That's, yeah, so unfounded, so yes, so it's been already dismissed, as we said. No, we have to vote on this, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, all in favor?
Second.
Oh, no, do I have a motion?
I moved.
Okay, Mr. Green, did you second it?
Yes.
All right. It's been moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And we have 2 cases for suspension, and that's case 171-22 and 170-22. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you. Seconded?
I second it.
Thank you. Discussion? Ready for the vote? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And I believe that is it for, nope, I'm wrong. We have 14 for possible, what are these? The continued suspensions. Right, we have case number 143-22, 123-22, 100-22, 063-22, 035-22, 020-22, 001-22 ED, 171-21, 160-21 ED, 138-21, 152-20, 112-20, 190-19, and 187-18 ED. I believe I got all 14. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, sir. Second?
I second.
Thanks, Dr. Darby. Discussion? Yes, sir. Mr. Green?
I noticed that most of these on the list, under reason for continued investigation, they state, you know, we're waiting for this or verifying that. But 3 of them, to me, it's not clear what the reason for the continued investigation or the extension of the investigation is. That's 143-22, 123-22, and 020-22.
Okay, let's see who has those. The investigators, are you able to shed some light? Do you need those numbers repeated? Pardon me?
This is Investigator Elwood. I have 143-22. Mr. Green, did you also say 123-22?
Yes.
I'll address each one individually then. In 143-22, we are waiting on subject officer statements. And I can't get into deeper clarification on that. Unfortunately, my notes don't have exactly what I'm looking for there. 123, that case, we're looking into the probable cause. And so therefore, I'm trying to speak with the subject officer themselves to try and determine the probable cause for the initial traffic stop that led to the search.
Okay.
And then the third case again, Mr. Green, I can't remember the number.
020-22.
Thank you. Is Investigator Hunt?
I'm here. In 020-22, we're actually, I'm actually looking to move that to a possible public hearing. So right now it's on the list as we're waiting on that information, but I've actually already received the information that I was requesting. And according to that information, we may be moving on to a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll know next month?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions? So we have a motion. We have a second. Vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Now I do believe we have the end of our case review. So the announcements, again, our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, February 28th. And again, because of the COVID restrictions and it being winter, we are going to do Zoom if everybody is fine with that. Hopefully we'll see each other in person the summertime, when all this hopefully is a little better. All right, Ms. Hamilton, do we have anybody who's requesting a public comment? I'm looking at my,
Let me look.
yeah, I'm looking here too.
I don't see
I
anyone.
don't see anybody either.
Tris and Mark are gonna type something because I don't think they have a microphone.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. They have their hand up, but
Okay,
I think they're gonna type something.
no worries.
Yep.
It's absolutely horrifying. We spoke with students and instructors at the popular Imperial Ballroom in New York City's Chinatown.
Have you heard dancers afraid to return to the studio?
I have heard, yes, and I hope that you're going
I'm not sure.
Isn't that I don't usually.
Let's try that.
But after the incident, I start to latch the door. So that he's who's coming in.
And they are typing, or we don't know?
No, they're not.
They're
I mean,
not
I don't see them.
Okay. The
Citizens
Ozark
Police Review Board.
Hear us.
Hi, Tris.
Near San Francisco.
Okay, do you want me to repeat a message?
In history, so two pretty exceptional events within 2 days of each.
Chris and Mark said Happy New Year and thanks for being there. And it's the chat's disabled for some reason. I don't see why that is, but I have to look into that. Sorry about that, Tris. Thank you.
Happy New Year to the Ozark.
And they all said Happy New Year to you. Oh, you can hear them.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Sorry, bye.
All right, folks, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
The ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time. And for those there in a remote world, thank you for joining us tonight.